decade of widespread violence across the northeast of Nigeria has destroyed homes, ruined infrastructure, and forced very large populations to flee to safety. The conflict is characterized by armed violence, suicide attacks, abductions, and sexual violence. Tens of thousands of people have been killed and thousands more gone missing, including from their homes, schools, and from displacement camps to which they'd fled for protection. Over the same period, 2 million people have left homes in areas impacted by heavy violence, an average of just under 550 people each day for a period of more than 10 years. Half of all schools have been destroyed or forced to close, and an already weak health system has buckled even further, leaving millions of people without access to healthcare. More than 600,000 Nigerians have fled to camps like this one, insecure, congested, and insufficiently resourced. Minimum standards in humanitarian response require that the entire surface area of a camp, including that allocated for schools, health facilities, play areas, markets, latrines, roads, walkways, and shelters, equates to 45 square meters per resident. Every individual in a camp should have 3.5 square meters of living space. For 160,000 people displaced to camps in Nigeria, the space available, including all areas, is less than 5 square meters, 1/9 of minimum requirements. Living space in many cases stands at just half a square meter per person, 1/8 of the space recommended for European prison cells. Governments and humanitarian organizations are responsible for ensuring that all shelters in displacement camps are appropriately sized and enclosed with basic walls and roofing that offer physical security, dignity, and protection from the weather. The extremely limited space available for camps in Nigeria is preventing organizations from upholding these standards, denying displaced Nigerians their right to an adequate standard of living and exacerbating the risk of communicable disease. Congestion issues for living space have a detrimental impact on access to other services. Beyond inadequacies with living space, hundreds of thousands of people living in camps lack access to a safe water supply and sanitation facilities. In northeast Nigeria today, at least 19 displacement sites are located in areas that face high risk of flooding. And of these, at least 13 also face high level of congestion. Few camps have appropriate drainage. All camps have too few latrines. Some have none at all, creating significant protection risks and far greater susceptibility to disease. In the rainy season from July to November, many displacement camps and settlements in northeastern Nigeria become flooded, increasing the risk of sickness spread through feces, fluids, fingers, flies, and food. There is no place to sit when it rains. There is no place to lie down. People call it water stuck. Not able to do anything else, they get imprisoned underneath their feet, standing under the shelter they are able to find. Life here is just to survive, many say. Sleep, eat, just to survive. In 2018, with increasing pressure on limited space causing overcrowding and strain on resources, northeastern Nigeria recorded 10,000 cases of cholera, resulting in 175 deaths and risking return with each new rainy season. Several outbreaks of cholera happened again this year. The dry Harmattan season also poses risks. A spark from a nearby cooking stove is all it takes to set a hut on fire. At the most congested sites, the risk of fire spreading is also severely high. So far this year, hundreds of shelters have been destroyed by fire, winds, and flooding, and more people arriving to already overcrowded camps are stretching available resources in a grossly underfunded humanitarian response. Without the income, farmland, or livestock they would usually depend on, most families are forced to take extreme measures in order to access the very basic items needed for survival. Dry food needs to be cooked. Cooking requires a saucepan and groundwater. Heating water needs matches and firewood. Venturing out of the camps to collect firewood exposes people to many of the same risks that drove them to flee to camps in the first place. Conditions for people displaced in congested camps in Nigeria are unbearable. Many camps remain insecure, services inadequate, and minimum standards for safe, dignified living are not being met. At some points, 87% of all arrivals have been women and children. As more Nigerians are displaced by violence, sufficient land must be available to accommodate them. Where security or space present a barrier to the provision of adequate services, solutions must be found by the Nigerian government to expand the land available to house and protect people safely. Nigeria's humanitarian response requires $850 million to meet basic needs in 2019. As more people are displaced by violence and experience restrictions on freedom of movement owing to ongoing insecurity, donors must step up to provide adequate funding and support to humanitarian organizations grappling with serious operational complexities. In early 2019, 92% of Nigerians living in displacement camps expressed an intention to go home when conditions are favorable, when the areas they fled are physically secure and feel safe, when people can move without restrictions and basic socio-economic services are restored. The Nigerian government, together with international actors with a shared interest in seeing massive displaced populations safely return home, must work to establish these conditions and provide Nigerians forced to flee with the opportunity for informed and voluntary movement back home. Until then, we must make sure that their living conditions are dignified and do not pose a threat to life and security. This requires all actors to invest more resources to make more land available, while urgently making sure that people currently living in these conditions are protected against illnesses and diseases, against serious protection concerns, against undernourishment, and that basic services are made available.